Welcome to the Mental Advantage Podcast. Whether you're an athlete trying to perform at your best when it counts the most, a coach or business leader trying to get more out of your team, or someone looking for more personal growth, this is the place for you. This podcast is your map to guide you to the right mindset, systems, and strategies you need to become the best version of yourself. And now, here's John Cullen and Brandon Allen.
Welcome to the show. So tonight, Brandon, we have another guest from South Carolina. As everybody is still buzzing about our coach, Ralph Cibateri, from Wednesday show, I guess. It's normally a Tuesday show. And wow, it was so great catching up with him. And it's been fun getting a lot of feedback from our teammates that, heard that show and were like, wow, it just brought back so many great memories.
For sure. And, it was, I listened back to it today and was just smiling ear to ear listening to it. Yeah. So it was good.
Yeah, I had one of my sisters sent me a text message today, and she said, I just wanted to reach through the phone and hug him. She said, and you could tell that he just cared about all of you all so much, and that you all cared about him. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that was what made him such a good special coach to play for. So, yeah. We talk about that a lot. Speaking of, working with athletes and somebody who cares about what they're doing. I mean, Chris Gingrich, who of course is the developer of Stoic Development Performance. He's a mental performance coach focusing on mind and body development, former military, kind of a little bit reminded me from a background standpoint of Andy Reese, who of course the listeners will remember.
For sure. And I think what they're going to hear from Chris is first and foremost, the he's a bad dude. I mean, he's probably not the guy you want to meet in the alley, and he sure as hell ain't the guy you want to meet in the water. Because
yeah, that's right. He can swim.
he can swim a little bit, and he might bring a shark along with him. So, but all kidding aside, having the opportunity to speak with Chris, and you realize the passion that he has for just life in general, but what he's doing now with Stoic Development is really great, and he's pouring back into his community. He's working with the baseball team up at ETSU, it's. I feel like I say this almost every introduction, but in a time where things are so tumultuous, depending upon your outlets that you get your news from or whatever. I hope the listeners don't forget, we got some really, really good men and women that are still out there pouring into our children. And when you got a guy like Chris, who's gone through what he's gone through, and he's sharing his life experiences with the younger generation, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, no, well said. And, he's got one of those stories that is so common among ex-military and ex-athletes where they really are searching for that identity after that time in their lives is over, whether it's coming out of the military or coming out of athletics, where you're missing some of that routine, you're missing some of that identity. And so he'll share some of that. And exactly like you said, is how he's using those experiences to really help those players and help all of the young people he's working with to make sure that they're going down the right path. So we will step out of the way and let you listen to Chris Gingrich. All right, Brandon, seems like we have a little bit of a Charleston, South Carolina theme going unintentionally for this week. So on Wednesday's show, which usually airs on Tuesday, but this week it was on Wednesday, we, of course, had our former college baseball coach Ralph Cibiteri, which we've had a lot of great feedback from the College of Charleston. And tonight's guest, Chris Gingrich, has actually spent quite a bit of time in that Charleston, South Carolina area. And so we're lucky and happy to have you on the show, Chris. So thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
So for the listeners, Chris has actually developed Stoic Development Performance. He's the owner of that program and doing a lot of really great stuff. We want to, first of all, kind of get into some of your history because there's a military background there. So talk to us a little bit, if you would, just about how things kind of started from, you went to high school in that Charleston, South Carolina area, then went and played soccer at Spartanburg. Take us through kind of how you ended up in the military from there.
Yeah, sure. So my father's retired military, grew up all over back and forth between the East and West Coast, and Hawaii a little bit. And, it's just what I remember from when I was really, really young, just being around the ocean and my dad being gone sometimes and coming home and being gone and coming home and that kind of thing. And it was until, I guess it was in high school when he retired and, just kind of got to learn as I was growing up about what he did and what the Navy was about in the military and that kind of thing. And so, the military was never pushed on me by my parents, and they were always like, go to college, try to find something else that you like. Don't do it just because, I did it or your dad did it or whoever, find your niche and enjoy it and be proud about it. And so, I ended up, soccer was something I just always grew up playing and, went to school at Stratford in Goose Creek and, had a really successful career playing there at Stratford and, got a scholarship to play at Spartanburg Methodist in 93, 94, kind of dating my age, but, 93, 94 time. And, had a really successful time there. I went to nationals in New Jersey at the time. I was really young and, I kind of took it all for granted and was like, I'm on a scholarship, I'm playing soccer and doing really well and all this, kind of boosting myself, maybe blowing my own skirt a little bit more than I should have. And, ended up dropping out after my first year and, continued to play soccer and just continued to work to just find my niche. And, I guess it was about 25, 26 when I finally was just like, I'm tired of putting off the inevitable and ended up going into the Navy. And and it was around that time, 2001 when I went in. And then, of course, the 9/11 attacks were really soon after I joined. And
wow. So you were in before the 9/11 attacks and probably saw that big rush of patriotism and everybody coming in right after that, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And then talk to us a little bit about, because you have a really cool military background here. You've had some of that, deployment. You also had some experience with some of the special ops folks. Right. So talk to us a little bit about some of the things you did in the military.
Sure. So, so I came in right before the attacks. And for those who don't know, the Marine Corps falls under the Department of the Navy. And so I came in as a corpsman, a medic, basically. Mm-hmm. And, Navy corpsmen and Navy religious personnel serve with the Marine Corps. And so right after I finished up my corpsman training school, was sent right to the Marines and in Camp Lejeune. And it was probably a little less than a year after I checked in when we got the call to go to Iraq and took off to Iraq in January. I want to say it was January. I think we were on Christmas break actually in 2002. And they called everybody back from Christmas break. And we all kind of rushed back and got everything ready. And they were like, hey, we're going to Iraq. And I think it was like January 1st or 2nd, we were all ready to go and took off to Kuwait and spent a couple weeks in Kuwait and then went into Iraq a few weeks after that. So spent couple months there. And yeah.
So how does that look, Chris? I mean, you talked about dating ourselves because John and I were in school at the same time, and
Sure.
and I know, I mean, being in the military when the attacks of 9/11 happened, I mean, do you instantly know, like, okay, here we go,
It's go time?
Or like, what was kind of the vibe in the military right before or right as that's happening?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think because I was so new in the military, like I had just finished boot camp and I was only maybe a month or two into my medical, corpsman training school. And so, we were after that happened, we were on lockdown for probably, we couldn't leave the base. We couldn't leave the area at all.
Oh, wow.
So we were stuck there on base for about 2 weeks, I think. And so, it's rumors and hearsay and all this, from, and at the time I was 25 at the time. So I was a bit older than a lot of the other people that I was there with. And it's 17 and 18-year-old, 19-year-old young adults at that time. And, everybody was just kind of saying everything. And, and it was like, well, I've got a family member in the military and they're saying this, and I've got, this person over here telling me this. And then it's, well, my friend told me this or that, or they're already in the military and they said this. And so I was really trying to kind of keep everything, within arm's distance, to just be like, okay, well, if it happens, then it happens. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And, that's why we're here, and whether we wanted to join the military to do something like that or not, it was kind of, it was go time, really,
Right.
So yeah.
So how long were you over in Iraq?
Almost 9 months.
Because that was your first deployment was and then where did you, because you did, I think, 3 deployments, is that right? Or
5.
How many? 5 total?
5, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was that your longest one, was the 9 months, or did you have some others?
That was the longest. And I did, let's see, 3 more to Afghanistan. And those were shorter because I was with special operations at the time, and they're a little shorter, but the tempo, the operational tempo is a lot quicker. It's a lot faster. We're always doing something, every day, every night kind of thing. And so, whereas when I was with the Marines, it was just kind of like, okay, let's go do this. And then it might be a couple of days or a week before we, hey, there's not much going on here. Everything's good. You need to go to this, this area. So then it would take, a couple of days to get to that area or support, this other element or whoever it might be. And so that was that. Whereas, when I was in Afghanistan with special operations, we were in a particular area, and then, we were getting basically intelligence from other people in platforms to go here and get this person or get that person or go after this person or whatever it might be. And again, the tempo was just very quick. It was just always something going on and always planning something. If it didn't come through, then we were still planning for something. And if it didn't work, because of weather or because of, a number of different things, then, we would put off to the next night. And then, we might get something else 2 nights later that's like, okay, forget that one. Let's go after this person or do this or do that. So the tempo was just really quick. So the deployment lengths were shorter.
So how do you manage that mentally? So we talk about, what you're doing and the kind of the stoicism, and you kind of said something earlier, like, hey, if we go, we go. If we don't, we don't. Like there. So is that
there was already some seeds?
It was already there.
Yeah.
I was going to say, or was that something developed? And
yeah, and that's funny because it's something I've been really thinking about over the last couple of weeks, of whether or not, stuff like that is something that we learn, throughout life, just throughout trials and tribulations and things that we go through, or if it's maybe inherited somehow or whatever. And, I think sports has a lot to do with that. And, my father was really athletic. I grew up playing sports since I was really, really young as well. And, again, soccer just stuck, but I tried other sports and other things. And I think that just maybe lays a little bit of foundation, a little bit of groundwork as to how you might accept defeat or accept winning, or if, and I think there's a lot of elements that kind of play into that and into those things particularly. But I think sports, plays a lot of groundwork.
Well, in particular, Chris, I think it's your particular sport, right? Because, Brandon and I talk about, baseball and the dealing with adversity, and it's such a game of adversity. And so it teaches us a lot to prepare us for life. Soccer, I think, as it relates to those quick kind of deployments, those, everything's a little bit higher pace. It's a little bit more ebb and flow to it. It almost lends itself, because that's a game, I've worked with some volleyball teams in the past and basketball teams, and some of those, it's a little bit faster paced than what some might think baseball is, even though we would disagree with that because it's pretty fast whenever you're between the lines anyhow. But the reality of it is those moments in those sports like soccer and basketball, you don't have those breaks in the action where you can reset yourself. You can get refocused on something. And so now you're in the military, and when you guys are going out and you're on some particular mission, there's not a lot of time where you're just sitting around and being able to refocus like that.
So John, and to that point too, and I would think, Chris, soccer is timing and spacing. And when you have an opportunity, you had better strike or you'll end up in a tie, right? The opportunities are sometimes few and far between. So that's actually a really good insight. So
right.
How does that play into it?
Yeah. I've never really looked at it like that. And I'm going to have to take some time to kind of, after this, maybe kind of sit back and dwell and kind of see, and maybe there is something to that as well. But I think with that being said, I think, if you hesitate, if you don't make a run when you're supposed to, and I think this is kind of like what you're saying is, if somebody has the ball and they're looking looking to pass it to you and you're not there, then you've just missed that whole opportunity that, you could have scored or maybe helped somebody else or helped your team have the opportunity to score. And I think that's a good point.
I want to get into here in a second. I want to get into some of your experience there with special ops. I know you did some stuff with SEALs, because I really think that, we're so interested in that mindset, that military mindset. And we've talked in the past with guests like Andy Reese and some other folks about just how, there's a lot on the line, right? Like, this is not like winning and losing a ball game. This is life and death situation kind of stuff. So that preparation is so key. But as I think about the military and I think about your exposure in all of those different deployments, but also your exposure just in your 17, 18-year career there in the military to the leaders that you must have had a window into, kind of watching some of the best leaders, because the military produces so many great leaders. Mm-hmm. Were there any certain kind of characteristics that you saw among some of the better ones that you think, when I think about leadership, these are the 2 or 3 things that come to mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a guy that I worked with at when I was a BUDS instructor, Mark James. He's a guy that he was a SEAL back in the 80s. He got out to pursue a professional career in triathlon, and then ended up coming back and working as a SEAL instructor, as a civilian instructor. And when I got to BUDS, I didn't know him previously, but when I got there was something about him and his leadership and his demeanor that, he's not a big, stern, big guy that you would be intimidated looking at, but the way that he talks to you also doesn't make you feel like he's belittling you either. And I've seen leaders and I've seen people talk to people and belittle them and talk down to them to maybe light that fire. And I've seen guys that have, just are having a conversation just like you and me, but there's a way that they can talk to you to be like, get your shit together. You know what I mean? And get your head out of your ass kind of thing. And I'm sure maybe you guys have experienced that too with coaches in baseball,
Sure. Yeah.
and I have too with coaches in soccer. And I think for me, he's one of the guys that kind of stands out in that, where he can talk to you and be firm, and like, okay, I get what he's saying. He's not an intimidating guy, but I'm not going to push any of those buttons to find out either. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's been a role model for me that I've tried to emulate, talking to students or talking to other people, and even being in a leadership role myself, that maybe I carried on after I left Buds to talk to other junior guys,
Yeah.
And I think maybe we'll get into this a little bit later on, but as well as I did, that people receive things different ways too.
Absolutely.
Especially with performance mindset, you can yell at somebody and you tell somebody a certain thing, but if that's not the way that they're supposed to receive it, or the way they interpret it, they're not going to know what to do with that information. And so
Absolutely.
I think being a good leader is reading people as well. And I think, like I said, I think Mark had that too, where he knew how to read people and how to explain and talk to people where they didn't feel belittled, or they didn't feel like they didn't know what they were doing, but he could also, help them learn that too, without having a negative response, if that makes sense.
Well, and I'm glad you started to unpack that, Chris, because there's a misconception, I think, that's out there that every single leader in the military is that drill sergeant that in your face screaming at you or whatever. And we just know that's just not possible to be a leader. You may have a title that makes you a leader in the military, but it doesn't mean that you're a leader. You still have to earn that. You still have to demonstrate some characteristics that are going to be consistent among the best leaders, whether they're military or not. Right. And it was some of those things you just mentioned. You have to meet people where they are. You have to be able to have a demonstration that you are vested in them. We talk all the time about leaders needing to be, let people know that they care. Maybe there's not as much about that in the military. I mean, they don't really have time for a lot of that, but at the end of the day, just letting somebody know you're vested in them, you have their best interest, because at the end of the day, it's all about, bringing people home and making sure that when you go somewhere, because there's so many people who are dependent on you, that you get your whole unit there and that they've bought into what you have to say.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So talk to us about how you kind of started into that training piece of it, because you got into dive instructor. I mean, I kind of stopped you there in your chronology, but talk to us a little bit more about how the rest of that happened.
Sure. So after I came back from Iraq, so my job, like, really, I wanted to go into diving into the Navy anyway. And that was kind of, my father was a diver, Navy diver. And that was just, again, something I grew up around, and was like, around the ocean all the time. And, I could walk to the beach from my house, for the most part growing up everywhere that I've lived. And obviously 9/11 put a little hold on that. And so when I came back from Iraq, I decided to go to dive school. Went to dive school, and that kind of, I don't want to say it closed the doors to what we call conventional Navy, but it kind of did, and it opened up the doors to the special operations community. And so, diving, EOD, explosive ordnance disposal, and SEALs are part of Navy special programs. And so I went to dive school, and I graduated as a diving medical technician. So I had the corpsman ground, medical training piece, and now I have a specific diving medical piece as well. And so again, with EOD and that having a diving element, and the SEALs having a diving element, that just kind of opened those two doors up for me. And that's ended up where I spent the rest of my career, the next 13, 14 years. Wow. With the SEAL teams pretty much. So my first command was an EOD command in Coronado, California, in San Diego. Did a lot of training. We didn't deploy. and I did 4 years there. And then I got a phone call from Naval Special Warfare Development Group, or SEAL Team 6. Mm-hmm. And I was asked to come there to screen, and I screened there and screened positive, and spent the next 7 years with SEAL Team 6, and doing 4 more deployments with them, and to Afghanistan. And then I got 1 to North Africa.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just, it was a lot of go, and, 100 miles an hour, and then 0, then 100, then 0 kind of thing, and being gone a lot. And and then after that, it was time for me to kind of slow down a bit. And that's where I got the instructor duty. So I was home all the time, from there, to be an instructor at Buds. And
So you talk about that operational velocity, right? And the go. I mean, you have to have that go, but you absolutely mentally and physically have to have that time off in a way, don't you? I mean, it would just seem the pressure for what you're talking about doing with the special forces there just would be the pressure on that. You would have to be able to get away some.
Yeah, and it's hard because you're dependent upon, and so they're the best guys in the world. Like these guys, like I some of the greatest guys I've ever met in my life. And there's a reason why those guys are who they are and what they do, and they can do the things that they do, and they're called to do the things that they do, because it's training and training and training and training and training and training. And we get time off, but we have to be nearby unless we're taking leave or it's allowed or whatever it might be. But we're always around. We're always in the area. We have to stay within the area, a certain distance, radius. It was very hard to learn at first, because it was like, you have this 100 miles an hour, and then now you're back home with your family, or, maybe friends, or maybe you're by yourself, but you have to figure out and learn this balance, you know what I mean? And I think that's hard. And I think that's one of the things that I struggled with after I got out of the military, was that I was so used to having this go routine.
Yep.
That when I got out, I was like stagnant. I was like, man, what do I do? Where do I go from here? What can I do to figure out how to go 100 miles an hour now, kind of thing. And I struggled with that for a long, long time. And then, that's kind of the Stoic thing kind of developed from there, and some other stuff. So
what's really interesting about that is that kind of explains where you see a lot of Navy SEALs, whether it's Goggins or Jocko, or even folks like a Josh Bridges and some of the other folks, right? Where they just, if you watch them and you follow them a little bit, they have this passion for life that when they see people that aren't out there exercising you just said it, John, squeezing everything you can out of life. That what you just said, Chris, gives such insight to what makes those guys tick and why they are so driven, because what I would call normal person would think is a busy day is nothing to these guys. Right. And to you, I mean, to your point, hey, I might put in a full day and it's a long day, and I still feel like I've been stagnant.
Well, and you're always training for something, right? I mean, that's the thing, is like when the military, you're always training for something. And so when you get done, and I see this in some former athletes as well, is they're used to the routine, but they're also used to preparing for something. It's all about preparation. So when they get out there, So
I think that's great too. I think that's why, I think I can relate, or that I can relate to one athletes and then to the military with the mental performance, because, we've all been there, right? We've all been, where it's like preseason and all you're doing is just practicing and practicing and practicing, and you're practicing for the regular season. And then it's okay, now we're practicing for the games and practicing for games, right? And there's always something that's there. There's always something every week that you have to validate your training, right? There's the games. And so, I think, and I think part of me, and I've just kind of come to this realization, is that I think part of me still has that drive and that, like, I got to keep going. I got to go kind of thing, and the end result might be, a client who is successful. And that might be my,
it's your payoff. It's your assessment
payoff or my win vicariously kind of thing. So, so I think that might be a little bit into it too. And, with athletes and guys in the military, there's a very similar ethic, I think, to, work ethic to that. And, I think that's familiar. And I think that's something that I can relate and even live through a little bit to kind of keep that fire, I think, maybe, you know what I mean?
Sure. Well, it takes discipline for both. Let me ask you this question. And I'm surprised with some of the military guys that we've had on, we've not had this discussion yet, but is mental performance what we know it, mindset, mental performance, whatever? Because like you said earlier, and I was thinking this when you said SEAL Team 6, is there's special forces, there's elite, then there's that group, right? I mean, this is the as you said, that's the cream of the crop.
Right.
Was there a conscious effort to teach mental performance or mindset to those guys? Or is that something that just allows them to be the best of the best? Is that's innate in them, or somewhere along the line has been developed in them?
Yeah. So while I was at Buds, this wasn't too long ago. This was like 2013 to 15 ish. Mm-hmm. I know that so I was a second phase instructor, which is the diving phase. First phase is kind of just, it's your physical, just, who can take the brunt of everything that's being put out, is basically kind of weeding guys out. And so, I know that they were starting to kind of teach some breathing techniques to some of the guys, like for anxiety, not necessarily anxiety, but for anxiety and nervousness, and to kind of keep your heart rate down and, that kind of thing. And
is that the box breathing, the 4x4x4
yes.
by 4 kind of thing?
Yeah. Okay. Yep. And so, I know that they were starting to teach some of that, and they may have been doing it prior to, but, that's kind of where I kind of first got wind about it, was around that time that I was there. And then, and I think it's just kind of gone from there. And while I was there, we had, John, when we were talking today, we have these, we call them 10-pound heads, these big scientists and, psychologists and people that were coming in to like evaluate us as instructors, and then evaluate the students and how our interaction is with them, because, the SEAL instructors, they've been through this, they know what is going on, and they know what these guys are thinking. And, me from a medical standpoint and working and deploying with these guys, that I was now being instructors with, had some familiarization as well. And so, you could see it in a lot of them too. And, again, John and I were talking today that, there's guys that, we would all sit back as instructors and be like, yeah, he's going to make it. He's going to make it. He's not going to make it. He's not going to make it. He's going to make it. He's not going to make it kind of thing. And, I think the first two classes, I was betting zeros. I was like, man, what's going on? And, you gotta figure it out, I think. And, you can't tell by looking at anybody, as I'm sure you guys know, who's going to be successful and who's not going to be successful. And, I think guys that take that to heart and take that breathing and not just be like, oh, this is mumbo jumbo. Like, I don't need that. That's for, other people. I'm going to be a SEAL and I don't need to learn how to breathe differently or breathe better or do the, meditation or close my eyes and visualize things or whatever. Right. And who knows, maybe that was, some of the guys' reason for not making it through. Maybe if they had tried some of that stuff, maybe they would have been successful, but,
because the good ones are looking for that competitive advantage, right? Like the ones that want to separate themselves, they'll take all of that information you're giving and they just absorb it. They just, it's
absolutely.
Like,
they're like, you know what? Hey,
if
they're offering this information, there must be something to it. So you know what? I'm going to try it. And if it doesn't work for me, it doesn't work for me, but I tried it and I figured it out that it doesn't work. Or, oh my gosh, this is
game changer.
Light bulbs, ding, 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 you know, bells and whistles, and, you know, and then figuring it out and then utilizing it, and then that being a game changer for them. Yeah.
Well, that's it right there, right? It's the actual utilization. So it goes from the theory that, you know, Chris is telling me to do something to actually applying it, which can be difficult in a stressful situation, right? I mean, that's why you practice as much as you do.
Right.
The actual application in a stressful situation, you're always going to fall back to the level of your training, right? So that can be tough.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And especially, you know, when all of this stuff is new to guys, you know, like, you know, 99% of the guys have never been through anything that's even remotely close to that, you know, whether it's, you know, having people yell at you and be in your face and purposely stress you out, you know, to getting up at 4 a.m. to go run out into the ocean and get in the water. And it's, you know, 60 degrees, you know, when you just came out of your warm bed, and, you know, so all these different things. And it's hard to take a minute and think about that kind of stuff when you have all these other, you know, things going on in your head and in your face and that kind of thing. And, you know, again, it's a learned thing. You have to be aware, and I think you have to know yourself to be like, you know what? Yep. I know that I'm getting stressed right now. So let me take 30 seconds to just breathe for a minute and calm myself down. And all it is this guy's yelling at me. Okay. It's not that big of a deal now, you know, or, okay, I got to get in some cold water and it sucks. And, you know, but I don't have another choice. I don't have any other choice. This is what I want to do. So I'm going to do it, kind of thing. And I'm going to make the best of it. So I'm going to breathe for a little bit, or I'm going to, you know, think about some other things, you know, and get through it. So
you hit on something there, Chris, because it's the awareness piece and knowing yourself, being comfortable with yourself, because, you know, we talk all the time, and it's, you know, I know you probably say the same thing as getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. But before you do that, and one of our guests that we had on early on, Mark Glacini, who's just an absolute stud, you'd love him. He talked about everywhere you go, there you are. And I love that quote, because you've got to get comfortable with yourself, because whether it's an uncomfortable situation, no matter what it is, if you're not comfortable within, then you're going to really struggle with any of these external things that are happening. So I think that, and we talked, you and I, a little bit about this afternoon about, you know, Angela Duckworth in the book Grit went to West Point. Like, a lot of people always want to know, what is the best of the best? What's that little thing that's in them, that spark, if you will, whatever it is that separates them. Did you kind of put a finger on it eventually? I mean, you said early on you were kind of bad about picking which one it was, but I mean, was it, you know, a certain thing that you think was consistent that you got maybe even better at saying, you know what, I can't necessarily put my finger on it, but I can see where that one's going to probably be the one.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think it was the guys in that, let me see, how do I say this? I think it's the guys that didn't allow the stress to change the way things were going. So, you know, we give them timelines, and some of the timelines we know that they're not going to meet, or they're going to be very close to meeting, but we want to see how they work together to get to where they need to be. And I think it's the guys that don't let that outside stress, I don't want to say bother them, but change the way that they know that they have to, or things that they have to do, if that makes sense. So, you know, if we give them a timeline, and, you know, a lot of guys are rushing around like, oh, I got to get this together, and I have to get this, and I have to get this in my uniform, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's the guys that are like, okay, you know what? I've got to be here at this time. Okay, that's in 30 minutes. Okay, well, I know in the 30 minutes, it's going to take me this time to get back to my room. I can do that. And then I got to get this and that. So they have it in their head before, or even on the way to getting to where they need to go. And I think it's those guys that can take the time out to not be as stressed, to give themselves a minute. Cause that's really kind of all it takes is, that minute to kind of like, take a couple of deep breaths and then, okay, what do I need to do? What's the mission right now is to be at this place at this time. Okay, let's, I can do that. Like I can get to that.
We talk about that as going slow to be fast, right? Like slow it down, gather yourself, then you can go ahead. Yeah. It'd be able to execute that. So do you think, Chris, that and I feel like we've now like got you on a couch and are just overanalyzing everything, but it's really interesting to me. I'm like, do you think, Chris, that, do you think though that being around some of those elite, athletes, if you will, military folks, that you started to see these mindsets and what separates the good from the average, that started maybe a spark in you to think about mental performance or what it is that makes people successful when it counts the most, and what people, was that the catalyst, you think, for some of the mental performance stuff, or where did that come from?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's where it was. And I know for sure it was at Buds, or at least that's where I recognized that the interest started to kind of, kind of burn a little bit. And, it was when these people came to monitor and watch and that kind of thing. And it just kind of struck me as just odd that all these people were so interested in that these people would quit or not quit in this training. And for me, and again, I'm sure you guys can relate, is that if you want something, go after it and get it. And to me, it was just that easy. It was just easy that, I'm going to be put through some shit and I'm going to not like it, but I know the end result is what I want, is where I want to be and what I want. And, for me, it was just that. It was, I wanted to be a diver, and, I got, we had our things in training and getting beat up and rolled around underwater, and, air being pulled out of our mouth, and, mask being taken off, and all these things. And, again, I think the easiest way for me to explain it is just that it was just weird for me to see all these people were interested in whether or not these guys were going to quit, right? And why they were going to quit. Well, and to me, it was just like, well, they're going to quit because they don't want it bad enough, or it's not in their desire, or it's not just, in their gut to like really want to be here and do this and accept, the things that they're going to go through in order to get to that end result. And I think for me, that's just kind of where it sparked. And it was just like, man, how, as an athlete and, as somebody who's worked with these guys and done some of the training, it was just that easy for me. And I was just like, I can help guys get through this. Like, you know what I mean? Let me find the tools that I need to be able to translate it to other people. Cause again, I'm having a hard time even translating it to you guys, but give me,
it makes sense though,
to be able to translate it to other people where they can understand it. And that's kind of what I did. And I kind of sought it out, and meeting Andy was, guy came
validation for, you knew like this is somebody who's speaking the same language on a lot of different fronts for you.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'm on the right path here. You had posted something on Instagram in the beginning of July that's right around that same idea around quit, and I love this. It was reset, readjust, restart, refocus as many times as you need to, just don't quit. Yeah. And that's really it, right? It's that, and you and I talked about this afternoon, which is, what separates, and you see this with athletes, whether it's the athletes you're working with now, or Brandon and I talked to, or have seen in our past, but you see the guys that say, you know what, I might have to change course. I might have to, but the goal is going to stay the same. I'm not going to stop pursuing it. I might have to readjust something, but the goal is going to stay the same. And what you and I talked about this afternoon is a lot of times, though, they also don't have, this is their only option. There is no plan B. It's the burn the ships mentality. It's like, it's like, we're going to go after this thing. And the other guys that halfway through Bud School or halfway through SEALs training, they're like, this sucks. I'm not really like, I was okay just being in the Navy. It's like, they don't want to push it that far. Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Yeah. And I think that's, I
I think that's a good point. I think guys that don't have a plan B, I think it's a little scary to think about, but if that's your desire and that's what really burns for you, then yeah, burn the ships, man, and go all in, yeah, 100% go all in.
So Chris, I asked this, especially on some of the more on the clinician side, when you're talking about athletes, right? And John's point earlier, what you've experienced and some of the people you've worked with is so much more important than a game. It's not a game. So, but there's this fine line between mental toughness and being mentally calloused, and being able to push yourself through something and yet be emotionally vulnerable, right? So how do you do that, or can you do that if you are, doing sugar cookies at Coronado, right? Like how do you go, I'm emotionally vulnerable, but I'm going to get through this, like,
right?
Or you just have to block it all out.
Yeah. So, and I think that's where the stoicism kind of developed for me, is that, I always thought that I had to just be hard all the time and just be, always have in the back of my head that I'm getting ready to deploy, or I'm getting ready to go do this, or I'm going to go back to work, or we're going on a training trip, or we're going somewhere. And, I've just always got to be on this, this certain level. And it wasn't until, again, I got out of the military and, struggled with a lot of feelings and emotions and stuff about being out of the military and things that I've done. And then, being out and now almost being stagnant. And I realized that, you can be emotional and be hard, when things get hard. And, there's an ultra runner, there's an ex-SEAL, Chad, God, I can't think of his last name right now, drawing a blank. But anyway, there's a quote that he says, it's be hard when things get hard. And I love that quote. And, or be hard when it gets hard. And, the other times it's okay to be emotional, and it's okay. As long as you don't let those emotions change the outcome or change what you're trying to do. So, again, part of stoicism is being emotional, but not letting those emotions control the effect or control the outcome of something. So, I can be upset or be frustrated or be mad, but as long as I recognize that and say, okay, I'm not going to let my anger control what I'm doing, because we all know that, once you get mad or frustrated, then your performance in any area, whether it's the military and shooting or, diving or, trying to hit a ball, as soon as you get frustrated, then, things take a quick downhill turn kind of thing. So I think, and I'm still learning it. I'm still learning that it's okay to be mad and angry and frustrated and sad and, all these different things, as long as I just don't let it control what I'm trying to do at that time, and then
is that something, I'm sorry, Chris, but is that something that you developed after the military? Because I think that there's this, we've talked about this on the show before. It's a little bit of that suck it up, you'll be fine, push through, kind of a thing. And I know that's in sports, and it's in a lot of father-son relationships and things like that. But it's also, I'm sure, very prevalent in the military of, hey, I don't want to let my, the rest of my group feel like I'm, soft or letting them down or whatever. Yeah. Did it take maybe something after the military for you to say, man, this is crazy, I can't be bottling this stuff up anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got out of the military, and it was an unexpected kind of departure from the Navy. And I was really, really depressed, and I was suicidal at the time, and for a few months, and I couldn't shake it. And for me, running and ultra running at the time, or before then, was kind of like an outlet for me, where I could come home from work and I could go for a long run, on the woods or on a trail or whatever, and just kind of be out, by myself and peace and nature and the whole thing. And, it was a struggle. I didn't even want to go do that. And, it was a struggle for me to even, get out of the house or even to get dressed to go for a run. And it was like, well, if I get dressed and go for a run, then I'm going to get myself kind of in that mood and, kind of get myself going. And it just didn't work. And, every day was like less and less and less. And then, I was in my living room by myself and, had a gun and was just like, I got to figure something out. And I have a son who is younger. He's 9 now, but he was even younger then. And I was like, man, I got to figure something out. Like I can't do this. And
was that identity crisis? Was it an identity crisis a little bit, Chris? Because it was like, I'm no longer labeled anything, right? I'm not this, instructor. I'm not,
Yeah, absolutely. That's spot on. I struggled with having this identity of having people count on me and having this, people depended on me and looked at me for certain things. And, I didn't have that anymore. And, after I left the military and I moved here to Johnson City, it was like, nobody knew me. Nobody knew what I did. And I was hanging on to that. And, it was hard. It was really, really, really difficult. And, I remember the day I was like, sitting here and I was like, I got to get out of the house. I got to go. And, I made myself, change and get my shoes on. And I just went out to the mountains and went for a long run and got emotional and let out the feelings and all the, feelings and shit and all that kind of stuff and let it go. And I came back and was like, okay, now I just started something. I don't know what it was, but it was something. And I got to figure out now, how do I keep this momentum, like this upward trajectory kind of thing, and then, and not to say that I don't, have, I don't stumble every once in a while now, but it's a lot. It's huge. It's so much better now. And I think the stoicism kind of stemmed from that, is that, I needed that, that run or that cry or whatever it was to get out and to be okay with it. And I think, maybe I just hadn't, and I kept that bottled up and that kind of stuff. And it was around that same time that I had friends getting out that I didn't know, were going through the same things, that were suicidal or that were, struggling with identity, crisis kind of things, or that were out of, the Navy, that, they were back home and they couldn't find a job and they didn't have anything to not even to maybe to validate them, other than a resume. And, friends that I was finding out about that they were, seeking therapy and counseling, and, they were being diagnosed with PTSD and medicated. And I was like, oh my God, it's not just me.
Right.
Like there's guys that I thought this guy, like, he was a friend of mine, and I didn't realize it until, years later, he wrote a book, and in his book, he talked about it. And I was like, holy shit. Wow. Like I knew this guy. I talked to him. I've hung out with him, never knew any of this stuff that he was going through. And so I think that kind of helped, like, okay, well, it's okay to be this way, or to act like this, or to have feelings, and, that kind of thing. And I think the stoicism thing, I just, for whatever reason, I think I had read a quote or something from Marcus Aurelius, and was just like, man, that's really intriguing, and looked into it, and then found the stoicism. And then that was just kind of like, man, it is okay to be emotional, and that's absolutely okay, but just don't let it rule you. Don't let it rule your life. And I just found a lot of comfort in that. And that's kind of where it stemmed.
Well, there's comfort in community, right? I mean, you talked about it before, where, there's something about when everybody suffers together that brings people close. I mean, John and I have talked about it. I do CrossFit, and it's the closest thing that getting after away from being an athlete and going in, whether it's an athlete or in the military or whatever, when you're used to having that team around where you guys, you may not like everybody, but y'all are putting out together.
Right.
And y'all are feeling these things together. And, and to your point, even if it's, whether it's stoicism or to find out that, one of your brothers is going through therapy, just to know that you're not isolated makes such a huge difference for all of us. So now, with that being said, I do have a quick question. So do you still run? It seems like a lot of Navy SEAL guys are ultra guys, I guess, because they've got the mental capacity to do it. Chad Wright, by the way, is the guy.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
yes.
Yeah. So I'll save you a trip to Google. But do you still run today? I mean, is that something you enjoy?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And, I've got some races coming up this year that I've got on my calendar and I'm racing and doing stuff. So I love it. It's my outlet, and I'm finding the love for it again, each day. And some days again, it's a struggle, but I think as long as I can lay the clothes out the night before and I get up and I see them and I'm like, okay, I got to go and, get to it, even if it's a 3-mile run or if it's a 15-mile run, as long as I can get out there. And I think it just makes me feel better. And it's like, there's a really good book, called Make Your Bed. And so
it was by a Navy officer, wasn't it, that made that?
Right. Yeah.
Navy did that book. Yeah.
Well, didn't he have that? He had a
keynote address.
Commencement
address. Yeah.
University
of really
Texas.
Good.
And, and he says, when you get up in the morning, make your bed. And that's the first thing, that's the first accomplishment that you achieve for your day. So I'll make the bed and then I'll go for my run. And that's like, and then there's another thing I read somewhere else, but it's called eating the frog, where you do the toughest things first and you get that done and out of the way. And then the rest of your day is kind of smoother, maybe. Sure. But
I saw a thing, Chris, where Hugh Jackman writes his to-do list in the past tense. So he writes everything as if he's already done it. So that he just lives his day to affirm the list, which I thought was a really cool thing.
That is really cool.
And Jocko has, discipline is freedom, right? And he talks about, hey, I'll wear the same thing all week long, because that way I don't have to, there's no decision. I get up and I go.
Right? Yeah. Well, that's like, don't they say that, like, what's his name from Facebook? Like a lot of those guys, they wear a sweatshirt and jeans and flip-flops or tennis shoes. And that's their whole wardrobe. So they don't have to worry about finding and wasting time.
Can't be bothered. Yeah. Absolutely. So talk to us about Stoic development. What were you hoping? Because we definitely see the influence the Stoics have had on you.
Yeah.
What is that? Why you came up with that title of Stoic Development Program, or what was it? A performance, I should say.
Yeah. That's kind of why. So it kind of started, and we talked about this a little bit today, was that, I'm going back to school now. And I'm going to East Tennessee State University, and I was a freshman, and I was taking a class and was talking to my professor, and, we were kind of talking about my background, and, obviously I was the oldest student in the class, and we got to talk about my background, and he was like, I would really love to introduce you to the sports doctor at the school. And so I was like, okay, cool. And, we met and we hit it off, and he's a big triathlete. And so we had a lot in common, and, with that. And then he was like, man, I should introduce you to is the baseball coach. And so Joe Panucci is the baseball coach here. And we got to talking, and Brian, the sports doc, was like, yeah, he has this background with the SEALs and, so on and so forth. And so we got to talk, and he was like, oh man, this is awesome. I was just looking at some SEAL training workouts and, what I can implement with the guys in the team to like some team building kind of stuff. And so he was like, man, would you want to come out and talk to the baseball team this Friday? And I was like, yeah, sure. What do you want me to talk to him about? Like, I didn't see, I didn't see it. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't get it. It was just something I lived, but, and after getting out, I see it now, where there's so much value that people see that I didn't see. To me, it was a job, and it was normal. And I worked with people who are very like-minded, very determined, alpha, if you will, type guys. And so So yeah, I talked to him for like 15, 20 minutes and had a really, really good time talking to the guys, and they were really attentive and asked, some really good questions. And then the next Monday or Tuesday, Coach Benucci called me again. He was like, "Hey man, do you think you could do this every Friday afternoon?" And so I was like, "Oh man."
And can you throw batting practice?
Yeah. And hey, yeah. Are you right-handed or left-handed?
Yeah. And so, it kind of went from there. And then it was like, can you talk to him for 5 minutes and maybe run through a workout this week? And then it was like, maybe could you just tell him a workout and then run him through? Like it went from a little bit of the 20 minutes of talking to him about how sports and life relate and, all these things and team building and leadership, to a 10-minute talk and then doing a workout and then a 5-minute talk and then, running them through a workout, like doing the workout for, just like you would at Buds, kind of thing. And I was like, wow. Oh man, okay, sure. And so I ended up doing that for like the whole season. It was right before COVID, and worked with a bunch of those guys. And
what'd you learn from that experience from a standpoint of pain points for those athletes? Because, I work with a lot of baseball teams and softball teams as well. And there are some common threads there. I mean, there's some things that it just seems like, whether it's dealing with adversity or handling the pressure or whatever, confidence is a big thing. Did you find some common pain points with those athletes?
Yeah. I think letting them know that I can relate, or that what they're going through is relatable to life, and not thinking, because, when we're in college, we think that it's sports and everything else is outside of that. And nothing is, nobody, if you don't play baseball, if you don't play a sport, you don't understand or you don't get it or that kind of thing. And it was like, look, college isn't the rest of your life. Like there's so much more, and there's so much that you can learn from baseball that you can apply to life. And if you can get that, if you can just let a little bit of that sink in, then man, you're going to be light years ahead of everybody else when you leave school. It's going to be hard. It's tough, but you're going to be able to handle it a little bit better. And just know that the things that you have here with these guys, your brothers on this team, you're going to be able to relate a lot of that outside, to outside of, if you don't go on to the next level kind of thing.
What I really like about that, Chris, is the fact that you're already planting those seeds, that they are beyond the game, that it's not, because you're getting them to think about the future, which gets them outside of this, I'm a baseball player, this is all I am kind of a thing. And it's almost like you're starting to separate the two and look at the individual, the person, in a separate way from the baseball player, because the things you're acknowledging, hey, you're going to learn some things from this game, but it's going to help the person. It's going to help you as an individual when you leave the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a really powerful lesson.
Yeah. Thank you. And that was, what I had mentioned to them is that it's not just, going to help you, when you find a job or maybe when you go to the next level, but, in your relationships too, you're going to have other relationships outside of college. I promise, and as much as they didn't think that, it was like, okay, yeah, sure, kind of thing. But I was like, look, like you can apply a lot of this teamwork and camaraderie and this brotherhood type of thing. Because what are you guys doing on the field all the time? You're communicating and you're cheering each other on and you're supporting each other. And, when, a guy strikes out, you're like, hey man, it's all right. You're giving him his time, but you're also like, hey man, you give him a pat on the helmet or whatever it is. And then you move on and you get through it. And it's the same with a relationship. You got to do those same things in your relationships. And then, obviously in your work relationships and your personal relationships and so on. And so I hope they got a lot of that.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah. Brandon. And I think what you're doing in a tip of the cap, Chris, because what you're doing is taking, something that for you was kind of painful and that you've gone through and being really selfless with that and passing that on from an identity perspective, from a, it just really, it does me very well to hear that you're pouring into young people today and not allowing kind of the trials and tribulations that you went through to go unnoticed or without giving back and allowing people to learn from what you do, which is huge in a team, right? I mean, as a coach, you always go, hey, we're going to fail, we're going to do whatever, but let's learn from everybody's trial and stumbling, right? So that
and that's a great point too, is that, I think what Coach Panucci was trying to do was, as athletes, as young athletes, we're gonna take what the coach says as kind of like, okay, we get it, coach. This is your pep talk, your kind of thing. And but if it was from somebody, I could say the exact same thing he was saying, but because it was coming from me, it has a different message, or maybe it gets through a little bit easier, And I think kind of laying that foundation or planting that seed a little bit when they're younger, it's only going to help them develop, and then they're going to pass that on, hopefully,
for sure.
And maybe to even younger guys, or maybe their kids, or maybe they go on to coach, high school or something like that. And then it just gets passed on even younger. And then, you can build upon that, as guys get older, and then, when they get to college, and then maybe they go to the next level, and it's like they go to the, the big leagues or minor leagues, and they're like, you know what? I already know how I'm going to go into this. I've already learned from it. I've learned from high school and in college, and, playing with different coaches maybe, or different players, or maybe I transferred schools in the middle of the season or something, and, that kind of thing. So my hope, I guess, would be that, these guys keep it, and then they can pass it on maybe, a little bit too, and that it's okay to use that stuff from school or from collegiate sports to your personal relationships and work relationships, and that kind of thing, and even develop stronger relationships in any of those.
So last question for you, Chris, because we've been more than nice with your sharing your time here, but you and I both have gone through Brian Cain's mental performance mastery certification. And that, having sat through enough of those MPM coaches calls, there's something that Cainer always talks about. It's the $1 million question. He always says, what do you know now that you wish you knew then? I'm going to shift this, because I asked this question a lot on this podcast, and I will tell people, hey, go back to that 18-year-old, 19-year-old. I'm not going to do that with you. I want to change this up a little bit, because I really think there's an opportunity here for us.
Okay.
I want you to go back to, Chris Gingrich just coming out of the military, right before hitting some of that tough stretch you did when you were in the lowest of your lows. As a mental performance coach, as somebody who is looking to kind of pay it forward, if you will, because I'll guarantee you there's some other, as you mentioned, other military personnel, people who are out there listening into this podcast, and they're thinking, man, I'm just right there. I'm coming out of the military. I'm getting ready to hit some of these roadblocks that Chris just talked about. What would you say to your younger self who's just coming out of the military? And what would you say to those folks to help prepare them for that journey ahead of them?
I would say to not discount your family and friends. And I think that they'll understand probably more than you think they will. And to rely on them, to not to keep it in, and not to feel like you have to do this journey or do this transition or make this transition on your own. And that was something that it took me a long time to figure out too, is that, I could count on these guys and family and, to help me and to help build me and as just a sounding board, to not discredit any friends and family, that they're going to know, they're going to understand probably better than you think that they will.
Yeah. It's your new unit, right? I mean, it's your new unit. It's your team now. Right. And that's the cool thing about it is everything's just shifted. You have a new identity. It was not military now. It's now father. It's now husband. It's now whatever, it is for that individual who's listening. But I mean, it's really cool. As Brandon said, I mean, the things that you're doing with ETSU baseball, things you're doing with just athletes in general, some of the people who are working with you, where can people find out a little bit more about, your social network? Do you have a website? I mean, how can they get involved with social development or the Stoic development?
Yeah. I got an Instagram, Stoic_development, Instagram. And then there's a link to the website, but it's, stoicdevelopment.com. And they can go to the website there and they can read it. I have a little bio and a little bit about what I can offer and what I can help with and that kind of thing. And so they can find me there. And then I have a personal page that it's private, but you can send me a request and I'll accept it. So
if
awesome.
Someone says, "Hey, I've got some pool time. Will you take me through the evolution where we bob up and down for 20 minutes?"
I think Brandon, that is signed Brandon from Cumming, Georgia, by the way, that request.
Yeah.
That
awesome.
has Brandon written all over, which by the way, I was just thinking because there is and I need to get my body in shape better to do this, but I believe Asheville, North Carolina, there's like a big 50K like trail run or some crazy thing they have going on up in Asheville. That if you haven't checked it out, you need to check that out. Brandon and I are doing a half marathon here in Nashville. You're more than welcome to come down and join us for that, which would probably be like a sprint easy for you.
When is that?
It's in November. So you'll have to make a trip down here.
Was
you
it November 13th or something?
Yeah, November 13th. So get it on your books and we'll have you down here and you'll be our pace. You'll be our pacer.
No, he won't be our pace. He won't be nothing. This Clydesdale runs alone.
The eagle flies alone.
Hey, at 2:40, I'll see you at the finish line.
Whatever it takes. Well, Chris, we can't thank you enough, man. Just keep up the good work. We're happy to have you out there helping everybody that you're helping, and I know you're doing a lot of good things to pay it forward. And we'll definitely have you back on the show here sometime in the future
and thank you for your
unpack
service.
some more things. Absolutely.
Appreciate all that you've done for us and the freedoms that you and all of your brothers and sisters provide for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Sounds good. Well, thanks, Chris. Take care.
You too. Thank you very much. And I can't wait to be back on. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. We'll talk to you soon.
All righty.
Want to provide feedback or stay up to date with the show? Visit our Instagram page at Mental Advantage Podcast, or you can send us an email at podcast@mentaladvantage.net. To have John Cullen work with you or your team, please write to him at john.cullen@mentaladvantage.net. Thanks for listening to today's episode.